Hey, Peter.
What's up?
You know, we're celebrating the 6-year anniversary of the Adam Manis Trio.
I did know that. I meant to tell you. Congrats, bro.
Thank you. You have a trio too, yeah?
I do.
How long y'all been together?
What's like 11, 12 years? You know, not that long.
It's a long time.
Oh, it is?
You know, the trio with Bill Evans, Scott LaFaro, and Paul Motian.
Yeah.
They were together for, you ready for this?
I love that trio, by the way. But yes, how long?
18 months.
What? Are you serious?
I'm serious.
All that great music?
All that
All
great
those great records? Okay, I got to hear about this. And I'm Peter Barton.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Music Explored.
Explored, brought to you today by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for your jazz lesson needs. Say, Peter.
Sheepishly. I'm going double stroke.
Double stroke roll,
Yeah.
Which fingers?
I don't want to brag, but
That's braggadocious of you.
Man, this sheet has been put in front of me. I'm excited because it says Bill at the top.
This is all
What
about...
Bill is this?
Bill Levens. Leve. No, Bill Evans, of course. Today we're talking about the Bill Evans Trio. We're specifically talking about the game-changing trio.
I thought you were about to say we're spitting rhymes about Bill.
We could do that too. We're going to try to do that. We had to put a little beat behind that Nardis just now.
Oh, come on.
No, we're talking about the trio with Bill Evans, Scott LaFaro, and Paul Motian.
Yes.
They were together from late 1959 to early 1961. They recorded 4 albums together. And they
How's that possible?
I don't know. In that 18 months, they were one of the most influential jazz trios in the history of the music.
Yeah.
And it was cut short when bassist Scott LaFaro was killed in a car accident when he was just 25 years old.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the 4 albums that really put this trio in sort of this legendary status. Portrait in Jazz, Explorations, Sunday at the Village Vanguard, and Waltz for Debby. And we're going to lead up to that Sunday at the Village Vanguard and Waltz for Debby because both of those albums were recorded on June 25th, 1961 at the Village Vanguard. That's a Sunday. So 2 of the most influential jazz trio albums, Sunday at the Village Vanguard, Waltz for Debby, recorded on the same day, and 10 days later, Scott LaFaro would die in a car accident. It's just this unbelievable circumstance. Apparently, it was even just like, he died. It was a nice morning. There was no weather. He's driving by himself. And it's just a real tragedy. It's a common story in jazz. We've lost a lot of folks very young, much too early in their careers. And I think this is one of them. So we'll talk a little bit about, the legacy of this trio and how Scott LaFaro's death affected both Bill and Paul. But I thought that we could just kind of set it up by talking about each one of these great players' history. And we'll start with Scott LaFaro. He was the youngest member of the group. He was born in 1936 in Newark, but grew up in Geneva, New York, in upstate New York. He was a part of a musical family. His father was a musician. He was a child prodigy. Before he played with Bill, he played with people like Chet Baker, Stan Kenton. He, at the same time, was playing with Ornette Coleman. And he was this prodigious talent.
Yeah. Was he a prodigy?
He was a musical prodigy.
Yeah.
And on the bass specifically, and we're going to hear here that he was doing things that not a lot of people had done before or since. I mean, truly an incredible talent on the bass. And so here's a recording of Scott LaFaro with Victor Feldman. This plays back into our Asia episode, Steely Dan's Asia, that Victor Feldman was all over. This is an album with Victor Feldman playing piano and vibes and things, and this is Scott LaFaro on bass. This is There Is No Greater Love. Huge sound.
Yeah.
Big bass sound. The most important thing that you can have. But also prodigious soloists.
Woo!
I know. Swinging.
Ever heard Ray Brown, my young man?
You don't hear that a lot in Bill's trio.
Right.
That kind of... Victor Feldman sounds great, too.
Yeah.
So this is a very young, like 22-year-old Scott LaFaro.
Yep.
It's killing it, right?
What year is this?
I think 57, 56. Why not move to the vibes? You're Victor Feldman. You can do all of it. Yeah. So
great stuff.
There we've got a young musician just coming into his prime. Drummer Paul Motian was born in 1931 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He spent some time in the Navy, and then when he got out, he started playing with people like Lenny Tristano, Thelonious Monk, Coleman Hawkins. He was really made a name for himself on the New York scene when he was a young man fresh out of the military. Here's a little bit of Paul Motian pre-Bill Evans Trio on an album by another vibes player, Eddie Costa. And this is, Bill Evans is on this album as well, playing piano. So this is probably where these guys became buddies. This is If I Were a Bell.
Well, that worked out to play it on the vibes.
Yeah. It's Paul Motian on the drums, Bill Evans on the piano.
Luscious.
Yeah, Brushmaster.
Yeah.
As we'll later hear in a lot of the Bill Evans material. Woo! Eddie Costa, man.
Yeah. Little hints of a little bit of cool West Coast jazz, but got that swing, got that flavor.
Paul Motian has a swagger to him, too. He really does. So that's what the two members of the Bill Evans Trio were doing sort of in the lead up. Now, Bill Evans himself is kind of an interesting character. You know, like he grew up playing piano. He said he tried violin. He ended up playing in the Army in the early 50s. He played flute in the Army band and a little bit of piano. And he met some musicians in that band that would be pretty influential. And he left the Army. He went to the Mannes School of Music in New York City.
Didn't he also go to school, at least briefly, in South Louisiana?
He did go to South Louisiana first. Yeah,
I thought there was a little bit of...
Before graduate school. That's right, yeah. And was really like, you know, studying composition and things like that. He got on the New York scene. He started playing like society gigs and then started to hook up with folks like George Russell and started to kind of really push some impressionistic influences. Right? Some of these French composers, Debussy and Ravel, in his music and some of the jazz that was being played in New York in the mid-50s. And he caught the ear of Miles Davis. And just before he formed the Bill Evans Trio with Scott and Paul in 1959, he had made this little album, Ever Hear of It, with Miles Davis. This is Blue and Green from Kind of Blue.
Is this better than KOB? Or
this is KOB.
Equal.
But it's funny to think this was very early in Bill's career. He was just a young guy. And he was only in Miles's band for 9 months. He wasn't in his band when they made this album. Miles brought him back because he wanted to have this sound for this album. So, again, this is from one of the most popular jazz albums, one of the greatest jazz albums of all time, Kind of Blue. It's impressionistic. There's less chords happening. There's more about this color palette that Miles and Bill Evans created together.
Yeah.
And as we'll see, this made Bill Evans a star, and he will keep pulling from the Kind of Blue well.
Yeah.
Again and again in his career.
Yep.
But it's just kind of a setup to where everybody was.
And then there's a little bit, you mentioned George Russell. There was, I don't know if they were calling it third stream already then. That's what they later
some of that,
on.
right?
And really early fusion in terms of classical and jazz, especially with the impressionistic stuff.
So these guys hooked up in 1959, the three of them, and there was pretty immediate chemistry. And, we talk about influential and what makes them influential to people. And it's really the conversational style that they didn't invent, but they, in a lot of ways, pushed forward, especially with the popularity that Bill Evans was writing after Kind of Blue. He had made a name for himself. People were paying attention to what he was doing.
Yeah.
And with Scott LaFaro and Paul Motian, he found a couple of compatriots in his sort of conversational style that he wanted to play.
Kindred spirits.
For sure. And they made their first studio album, Portrait in Jazz, in 1959. It got released in December 1959. I just broke my pen. I literally
impressive.
just snapped it right off.
Bill Evans makes all pianists nervous. His skill level
is
at a
high.
point. I've got this coffee here just in case I have to crunch it up or something,
So this is Autumn Leaves, and this is take one from Portrait in Jazz, 1959.
Take one.
This is take one.
I bet it's good.
This is the first album that these three made together. So you can hear Scott LaFaro is not just holding down a bass line. He's commenting on the music that's happening.
Yeah. He's participatory from the beginning, right after the arrangement part. He's just like, he's in it musically.
Oftentimes, the first soloist would be the bassist in this trio. He might have been the best soloist in the trio. I don't think that's controversial. I mean, he's probably more of a prodigy on his instrument than Bill was on his. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Much like in the Adam Manis trio, I'd like to throw out the Bogaboo part of it. I like to let the best soloist start. Paul Motian there. It's conversation happening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a statement piece. You know what I mean? That's...
I remember when I first got this CD. This was the first Bill Evans CD, Portrait in Jazz, that I got. I'd heard Bill Evans mostly on Miles stuff, although I'd heard live at the Village Vanguard for sure. And I think I'd heard Waltz for Debby, the live stuff. But I remember when I got this, I was not ready. And this was the first track I listened to. This takes me totally back to it. I was just the bass soloing first and so much conversation. And I think I kind of knew Autumn Leaves at that time. I was so intimidated by this. I literally had to put it to the side and be like, I'm going to come back to it.
It's some high level shit, man. Yeah, there's a lot happening there. It rewards deep listening, for sure. But it also, because of the sort of general pathos that all three musicians are so great at exhibiting, it can be a vibe as well. Yes. It can be a rainy day, sweat, put on your cardigan as I'm demonstrating here.
Right.
Cardigan. cardigan, put on your Bill Evans nerd glasses, and just enjoy yourself. Like, it is really...
You dressed the part today.
So, I know. I actually did dress knowing that we would be doing some Bill Evans today.
But, man, look, can we just talk real quick about the sound on that record? This is Prestige, right?
Oh, dude, all of them, yeah.
Man, that's a
That's a good sound. Might be,
and the
the brushes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Van who?
So, late in the album...
Van Winkle?
Late in the album,
oh yeah,
they played this. Sound familiar? This is, of course, Blue and Green again.
Yeah, we did use that chord in our...
Maybe we should play some Blue and Green on the way
transition.
out today.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We'll play a little Blue and Green
Nice.
at the end. Yeah. So this would be a common theme. Bill would often play things, as we'll hear, that are very reminiscent, if not directly, from Kind of Blue,
Yeah.
his most famous album that he made
Right.
with Miles Davis. It's a beautiful recording.
Smart
though.
move commercially.
Smart move. So that's 1959's 1959's Portrait in Jazz. It's a
Blue and
beautiful...
Green, written by Bill Evans or Miles Davis?
It says Miles Davis. There's many stories about it. It was probably a collaboration,
I think
if
we
we're
can say it
being
was Bill
generous.
Evans at
Yeah.
this
The next album they make, a lot of people consider to be the second one of the four here, to be definitely their best studio one. It's probably better than Portrait in Jazz. And it might be the best trio recording of the 60s, even though it's released right in 1961. It's unbelievable. It's called Explorations. Yeah. Every tune is a banger. It starts with this.
Yeah.
Israel. This was one of the songs that made me fall in love with jazz when I was a young kid. Some minor blues.
Man, it's dynamics, arrangement, vibe, swing.
Listen to what Scott and Paul do here. I just remember being a young musician being like, what is happening?
Yeah.
The dotted quarter note feel.
I mean, Unless I'm Getting My Dates Off was very influential to Tony Williams, Ron Carter, some of the way they would phrase 62, 63. They had to have heard this. Or maybe they heard the same thing.
It's a popular record for a jazz record.
Yeah.
All four of these actually were.
Yeah.
These all,
Yeah.
one of the reasons why they're influential is people were listening to these.
This track, actually, I think this record, like if you were to say the classic trio, and we could talk about whether or not this is the Bill Evans classic trio or not, but this track probably, if you had to play one,
Whew.
this is the one.
This is the one. We're going to save this later. I want to skip ahead a little bit to the trading between, after the bass solo here, there's some trading between Bill Evans and Paul Motian that I want to highlight. Paul Motian, swagger, man.
Yeah.
Swagger, all swagger.
Yeah. Man, he's tuning on the toms.
I know. The sound is unbelievable. The brush playing is very high level. That's Israel. That's the opening track off of Explorations. Another track, the opener that we did in our open, Nardis. Again, Bill's voicings are what people talk about the most probably with him. And there is a thing going on. There is a thing happening in the voicings.
Yeah.
It's like these rich colors that he's pulling out with the influences of all of those French impressionistic composers. You can hear the 13ths, the 11ths being brought out of these chords, and it matters, man. It creates a sense of that mid-century warmth.
Yes.
That will always be indicative of this time period and this trio specifically.
Yeah.
You know?
But his voice, like, here, the voice leading.
Yeah.
I mean, as great as the voicings are, it's like his voice leading. And for those of you that aren't musicians, don't worry. We're not nerds here. Yes, we are. But I mean, the voice leading, it's just like, if you think about it, I like to think about like vertical versus horizontal. Like, it's like with architecture. If you walk into a room and say, wow, this feels so good, and you're only looking from the ceiling down, that's good. That's the voicing, right? Like, that's the one chord. The voice leading is like moving from room to room. How do you get from one voicing to the next, that connection? And it's the fact that if you were to isolate any of this, like, bling, like any of his voices, they're going to sound great.
Yeah.
But then it's a little bit like, wait, I can play that voicing. How come I don't sound like Bill? Because he knows where he's going. Voicing, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that beautiful, moving through the music as a chordal instrument that not only pianists, I guess guitarists, vibes, maybe, if they must. But I mean, it's a brilliant thing he had. And I just want to say, Paul Motian, super influential. You start to hear all this as we revisit. Personally influential to me, I don't think you know about this, but Paul Motian, when I was first out on the jazz scene in the early 90s, I'm a little older than you, son.
Do tell.
Come on, son. What up, son?
Talk more about that.
Used to be so cool. I remember being on the road, and Paul Motian was traveling with his own trio and quartet. He had some great groups in the early 90s. And he was the only jazz musician that I knew that carried one small bag and some cymbals.
Oh,
that was it. No checking.
That's a pro move.
I used to have a huge duffel bag.
Legend move right there.
Yes. No, but nobody was doing it back then because there was no like baggage charges or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't as much of a thing. And so he had one little roller bag. So I've adopted that. I'm known in the jazz community as Mr. Carry-On.
Yeah.
That's my name.
Listen. We're going places. We don't have instruments with us.
That's right.
We don't need more than a carry-on.
Now it's not that unique. But back then it was a thing. And thank you, Paul Motian. Like, that opened up a world of freedom to me in travel for many years.
So explorations, and we'll have a playlist of all of our selections here, but I just encourage you to check out these 4 albums, Portrait and Jazz, Explorations. And then in June, specifically June 25th, 1961, this trio was at the Village Vanguard, I think for the whole weekend, but they recorded one day of that weekend, the Sunday, June 25th, 1961, and they ended up releasing 2 albums. Now, I don't know if this would have been 2 albums had Scott LaFaro not passed away 10 days later.
It should have been either way. I mean, when you hear it, it's like...
There are enough highlights for this to be 2 albums.
But think about this. 2 albums, that means it's basically the whole gig.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean...
Unless they may have done do you know if they did a matinee? I wonder.
I think they did a few sets.
Okay.
I think they
More
did
than 2
maybe 3 even. And there are multiple takes of things. So they've done things multiple times.
But still, this is a majority of the music that was played that day.
Yeah.
2 records.
I know.
That's crazy.
And they're both also, it's Sunday at the Village Vanguard and Waltz for Debby. Like, it's not just 2 random live records.
No.
These are 2 of the most influential trio records of all time.
Yeah.
And they were recorded on a Sunday, on the same Sunday at the same club. Live.
And somehow they both have their own distinct... I mean, for years, I didn't know these were recorded the same day.
Me neither.
Like this, but they have their own personality. Like, the sequencing on them is fantastic individually.
Yeah.
It's not like volume 1, 2, or it's not like early set. You know what it reminds me of? Is My Funny Valentine and Four and More. Those 2 records were from the same concert, but they're both...
Great
They
take.
make sense once you know but they also make sense on their own.
They do somehow.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
And I think Waltz for Debby, especially being anchored by probably his most famous composition, his biggest standard, his most beloved composition, that anchors that record.
So release-wise, Sunday at the Village Vanguard came out first, and we'll start with Glorious Step, which is a Scott LaFaro composition. Again, keep in mind, this is a live recording.
Right. This is the theme song for the St. Louis Blues a few years ago, remember?
That's a different Gloria.
Okay.
I actually love this tune.
Yeah.
And again, you can hear this interplay happening. Paul Motian talks about in some interviews, not specifically with this trio, but with Bill Evans in general, that he loved to play. He loved to rehearse, and that they would rehearse all the time. They'd be playing all day, gigs or no gigs, just to get it to where you hear it. It was something interesting we heard Ray Brown talk about with Oscar Peterson's trio. Right. Similar thing. They'd be practicing all night.
And Ray Brown loved to rehearse.
Yeah. I love rehearsing too, man. There's no better feeling than feeling like you're prepared.
I actually do not like rehearsing, so I feel weird, but to each
Don't worry about it.
You know, so I just want to say, I was just, as I was listening to that, you know, one of the accomplishments of this recording, and I love the way you've put together, and as always, we'll have a Spotify and an Apple playlist for this, because I think that this is such a, I mean, all these records are great, but if all of them are great, what you've put together here for Bill, you know, and the classic trio, I think is such a beautiful entree point.
Oh, listen,
you know, whether or revisiting, or just a way of kind of traveling through that without listening to all 4 records. You can do that too, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But I would say that this Vanguard stuff, I'm sitting here listening, and I can tell you from being in the Vanguard many times as a listener, but actually way more times on stage, what they captured on here. I mean, the playing as a trio is just off the charts as a listener, but also for the inside baseball people, it's just like so artful, just the detail oriented. But the sound of it, and the fact that I wasn't alive in 1961, but the Vanguard was.
Talk more about that.
You might have been. Caleb was. He's a little older than all of us. But the idea of like it's still being the same, at least it feels the same to me.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing the piano here and the drums. Like, if you haven't been to the Village Vanguard, get your butt down there. I hope it's going to be there forever, but it's been there almost 90 years now. Like, you know, get there and experience something like this, because it's magical. And this is captured on that.
I'm so excited, man. I'm doing a New York trip. I took my daughter a couple of years ago, just to like 2 of us hanging in New York for a long weekend, going at the end of March with my son, Ivan. And he's never been to New York before. We got tickets for Aaron Parks at the Village Vanguard.
Oh,
we're gonna go. I know, it's going to be so much fun. He also, my son plays upright bass now, so I'm really excited for him to experience live jazz on that level at that club.
It's a magical time. So it's a magical thing.
Another track from Sunday at the Village Vanguard is Solar. And again, this is with the theme of Bill playing Miles stuff.
Yeah.
You know, always kind of like, as artful as he was, he was a little bit like a showman. Like, remember those popular records I was on with Miles Davis?
I hope you like that new original. Here's a little ditty I used to play with a guy named Miles Davis.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's what it feels like. So that's Solar. Let's listen to the melody.
Oh, that cymbal, sizzle. Woo!
Actually, I want to skip ahead to Scott LaFaro's bass solo a little bit.
I just want to say, before you do that, can I jump in?
I could stop you if I...
There's 4, I'm writing down 4 names here, because I want to send these tracks. I feel like they probably have never heard this. And we always think about these records. Everybody knows these, though. Hold on. And, okay, I've got 4 names here of pianists that I think should hear this stuff, and it could influence, as great as they are already, but could take them next level. Aaron Parks, Keith Jarrett, Robert Glasper, and Brad Meldau.
I'm pretty sure they've heard all this.
You think so?
I think so. Okay.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Good one, Pete.
Shout out all you guys.
Let's listen to a little bit of Scott LaFaro's bass solo on Solar, and then let's send these maybe to Ron Carter or Chris McBride. Let's see. How good is he?
Awesome.
Amazing. Woo. around this time, he was also playing with Ornette Coleman. He's on that free jazz album. Charlie Hayden and Scott LaFaro are playing two bass.
Oh, the green
together.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so you can imagine what that's like.
That was before this.
Just wanted to demonstrate just what a prodigious talent Scott LaFaro was. 25 years old here as well. So we've covered the first three albums, Portrait and Jazz, Explorations, and then Sunday at the Village Vanguard. Again, recorded in the very same day was Waltz for Debby, and it wasn't released until later, 1962. And it has this incredible original composition from Bill Evans called Waltz for Debby. It was written for his niece, Debby, in like 1953, apparently. It had been around for a while. But to me, this might be the apex for the whole thing. We'll see. I have another apex, but... This captures the...
Next transition is great too.
We learned this at Opus Studio Pro.
Yeah.
In the Piano Masters Club. Enlightening to say the least. Eye-opening.
I think Scott LaFaro's intonation might be my apex moment.
That's pretty good. A waltz in 4? What?
Let's start in 3.
That's Waltz for Debby. Again, from the album Waltz for Debby. Also recorded live at the Village Vanguard. And there's just one more track I want to play from these 4. This is the tune Some Other Time, and just see if this seems familiar.
Oh. Never heard it. Is this a blues?
For those of you who don't know, this is exactly the same opening as flamenco sketches from Kind of Blue, sort of.
Same vibe. This might be the afternoon set.
You can hear the cash register.
I was going to say it's a little.
Yeah.
That was just taken out a few years ago.
So good, man. Yeah. It's really a tragedy that 10 days later we lost Scott LaFaro at such an early age, at 25 years old. He was driving back from a gig in the Catskills to his place and lost control of his car. Apparently, it was borrowed a friend's car or something like that. But yeah. So just thank you to the Bill Evans Trio.
Yeah, man.
And you know, the legacy of this was that Bill didn't play for months after Scott died.
Yeah, it was hard for him.
Took a lot of that year off just because it was really, really hard. I feel like you can hear in the music, they all felt like they found, you know, people who were in sync with their idea of what music was at that time. And that's a special thing, man. Those people don't come around very often.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and you know it when you're in the middle of something special. And I'm projecting my own lack of any actual insight into this, but I can imagine it was feeling like it was the beginning. It didn't feel like it was in the middle or the end.
It would have to have. Yeah. Just a year and a half together.
Yeah. Or maybe even barely. I mean, like to us, we look at how much happened and then we're kind of like, oh, well, they were deep into it. And musically, they were deep into it. But I think chronologically and just in terms of the trajectory, I mean, it must have been. Oh, I did think of 3 more pianists we need to send this to in case you're interested.
Okay, great.
Can you stop me?
Please do.
Herbie Hancock, Renee Rosnes, and Sullivan Fortner.
I think we're good on sending pianists our favorite Bill
Sullivan
Evans
might know, but Herbie and Renee.
I just feel like we should chill on the suggestions to the legends.
Okay. They would like it though. Just saying.
One more track I just want to play, and this is a tune that was written later. This is called Turn Out the Stars, and Bill Evans wrote this in tribute to Scott LaFaro.
Yep.
And this is from a 1966 album with Jim Hall, just a duo record called Intermodulation. Just want to listen to this.
Great record.
Great record. This is a beautiful tune that Bill wrote for Scott. Gorgeous. And all of the duo records between Bill Evans and Jim Hall, it's magical.
Yeah.
Let's get to some categories, Peter.
Okay.
So Desert Island tracks. I am going to go with Waltz for Debby. I think if there's one tune from this trio that makes me happy every single time, that I think is really, really deep and rich, that I just love so much, it's Waltz for Debby.
Yeah, that's a good one. But I'm going to tell you even better one. My Desert Island, Blue and Green.
Good.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Even
good.
though it's not the classic version, the KOB version, I actually, in some ways, from this trio version, I don't know. It's that and more, because it's not been listened to as much by myself or anybody, because you can't avoid the other one in a beautiful way. You can't avoid the kind of blue version. But I think that would be a fun thing to have on a desert island. Is that? I mean, it's just the soul and the spirit of that, of the simplicity. Bill's reading of it. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Apex moments. I'm going to go with Bill Evans' solo on Israel from Explorations. The opening track for Explorations, which we listened to a little bit. Bill's solo on that, to me, is the apex moment for this, maybe for this whole trio.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm going to go with the second chorus of Autumn Leaves on
That's a good one.
On
That's
Fortune
a great
Street.
moment.
Because that was, I'm telling you, that's the part that scared me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I get that.
And then as I went back and started listening to it over the years, it's the action is so compelling. Like, they're playing the most standard of standards, but like the possibilities that opens up to it, to me, is like the apex. Like, that's what I wanted. That's why I feel like it congeals the music, the interactivity, like what a piano trio can be.
Bespoke playlist title. I have a couple here.
I've got a couple too.
If this were an Apple playlist,
You're getting into that one.
it would be called Sweater Weather. That would be the name of the playlist.
Sorry, say that again?
These Sweater Weather.
Do you have a lisp?
Sweater Weather. It would be the name of the playlist.
Why are you looking over there?
I don't know. And then another one, if
Sweater
this were,
Weather, is that
I
what you're
think
trying to
Spotify would have this on a playlist, like would have any of this music on a playlist called Sensitive Smart Boy. That'd be the name of the playlist.
Okay, can you guys look?
Sensitive Smart Boy.
Where's your camera? He looks at me like look at the camera like you're looking at me.
Sensitive Smart Boy.
No, that's not how you look. Look at it. Look at me again and say it.
I gotta look down.
Okay, I like it. I actually
Sensitive Smart Boy.
There you go. See, such intensity. I like it. I think you are a sensitive smart boy, aren't you?
They just had the.
I'm a sensitive smart ass.
Did you watch any of the SNL 50 on Sunday night?
yet.
So they had this whole like compilation of all their commercials that they had.
Yeah.
And they had one. It was like Fisher Price made a wishing well for sensitive boys.
Wish I was a wishing
It was just like this
well.
wishing well you would have in your house, and just like this sensitive little skinny boy just like thinking about it.
That inspired you.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple funny ones, and then I got my real one that was inspired by something you said earlier.
Okay.
First is kind of an obvious one. Shoegaze for life, with the 4 as a number 4.
Shoegaze for life.
You know, even
that'd
though
be a
it's a
confusing playlist for shoegaze fans. So go ahead.
Jazz piano bespoke trio jams.
He got
with a
bespoke
Z.
in the episode.
With a
He got
Z.
bespoke in the
Ding.
episode.
But those are just playful ones. Mid-century modern jazz piano trio, comma, rated, :A.
A little long. I like the mid-century modern jazz piano trio.
Yeah, rated A.
Even that, rated A. None of these B ratings.
No, it's not X, it's not B, it's A.
Okay, up next, if there were an album that was up next in like recommended
I
for
got
you,
good ones for this.
What do you got?
Okay, so I got two. Ahmad Jamal, Live at the Pershing.
Great call.
Yeah. And Oscar Peterson, Night Train.
Also a great call. In fact, I think I had Explorations and Night Train at the same time. I bought them in the same day.
Yeah. Because you might say, oh, wow, stylistically that's so different. But like, this is all rated A piano. These are piano trios that are classic, that are interactive, that have their own vibe.
Love it.
So to me, a lot of times the up next is not about, something with the exact same vibe. Like, we're not going to go Kind of Blue after this because some of it's the same, right?
Yeah.
We're doing something else that structurally has a connection.
I went with pianists on either side of his run with Miles Davis. I went with Kelly Green from Wynton Kelly.
Great one.
And I went with a garland of red from Red Garland. First of all, I love the green and red on either side of Bill Evans and his blueness.
Yep.
And then
Blue Evans.
Undercurrent, which was Bill Evans and Jim Hall duo, I think would really pair well. Any quibble bits on this? I don't have any really to say because I love the way these albums sound.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't change much of the music. I feel like at what they're doing, this is really high level. All of the song selections are great. There's originals sprinkled in. Even the bass player's writing killing songs. You know what I mean? I like all of it.
Yeah. My only quibble bit I have is, and if you are a Bill Evans, well, I can't say I'm a Bill Evans lover. Come on. But I'm like, if you're a deeply, deeply intense Bill Evans lover, you're going to want to fast forward 30 seconds here because you may have a quibble bit with me as a human.
No, turn your volume up.
No, my only quibble bit is that this trio, really just Bill Evans trio. I mean, even if you look later, like Eddie Gomez, Jack DeJohnette, there's other trios that he played with for longer, but this would be considered the classic, right?
Sure.
But that they created something so intense, so intense and so personal for these three players and really Bill Evans' conception, but possibly something that is kind of easy, not easy, but it can be imitated. Like there's elements of it that can be taken, and people have done that.
It's true. It's been overplayed for sure.
Yeah, not that you shouldn't do that. And I don't want to say, oh, this is so easy to do, because to do it like this is not. It's impossible. But there's something about this that created like a lot of imitation. Yeah. You know, and so you can't blame that. But I'm just saying it kind of went to this whole little bit, sullen, somber, sad boy music, which is to me not really the ethos of jazz, but doesn't like the dynamics, the dynamism, the soul of the way that they played it. That's the original, but it is kind of sensitive and stuff. So when you take parts of that and start to imitate it and ape it, perhaps it can kind of become a caricature of itself.
I think those are fair quibble bits for sure.
Okay.
Snobometer. I've got it as a 7. We've been really off on the snobometer, you and I. Yeah. So I'm interested to hear what you have on this.
I have it 5 because I don't understand it. So I'm just going 5 from now on.
Straight down the middle every time.
No, I mean, it's like, how can Bill Evans be snobby, but how can it not be snobby, right? It's like it's the ultimate snob.
That sentence doesn't make sense.
Well, that's why I said 5, buddy. What do you mean? Right. Tell me your 7.
Well, just in that...
A 7 is like a mezzo forte. It means nothing.
I guess it kind of does. You're kind of right. But I think it's not as accessible as some other just like tip-in, swing-in, Lou Donaldson, Alligator Boogaloo stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that stuff is easy to listen to. Yeah. This, like you said, like, you were turned off when you first, like, listened to Autumn Leaves, right?
Yeah.
I think just like someone, maybe like Monk or someone like that, this takes a little bit of acquiring the taste.
Well, that's if you're comparing it to other jazz records. I almost think the snobometer should be compared in this case because, like, there's no one's gonna be like, oh, I've got this pianist you probably never heard of, Bill Evans. You got to really like be an inside. Everybody knows Bill Evans,
of course.
Right?
Everybody digs Bill Evans,
right? But I would say like a record like Interplay. Now that's one of my favorite records. That's a snobby record because most people like don't even know it. They don't think it's his best record. They're like, no, of course, one of these 4 trio records is his greatest albums. So I almost feel like these are, in a way, so straight down the middle. I mean, like, if you were to be like, this is your introduction to Bill Evans, you can take any of these records, anything from this classic 18-month period and say, that represents Bill Evans. So this, to me, the snobby level is low because of that.
No, I'm not sure what the snobometer means. Okay. Is it better than Kinda Blue?
No.
Okay. Accoutrements. I have 8 for all 4 of these. I don't know if we can put all 4 of these album covers up, but like Portrait in Jazz, Explorations, Sunday, and Waltz for Debby, all killing, all classics.
The only one I would drop down to a 7 perhaps, and some of them maybe even a 9, would be Portrait.
Just because of the nerdy picture where he looks like Michael J. Fox's dad in Back to the Future?
Marty McFly.
He does.
A little bit. No, I mean, although compositionally it's great, but it's really up in your face. You know.
Yeah. Look at that guy.
Bill.
There's Bill. Cool.
All right.
So leave a comment. Let us know your favorite, any of these tracks or anything else. And then check us out at the Nerd Nook. If you're an Open Studio member, go to The Hang. And I'm going to be making a little video on how to get some of those classic Bill Evans sounds. And some of I have this one voicing.
You're a master of that.
I have
a master of that.
Well, thank you very much. I can ape anybody. But no, I have this one voicing hack. This one easy voicing hack. That
12 Bill Evans hacks.
No, there is a little voicing you can do where it's just kind of like, oh, that's Bill Evans. Okay, cool.
And you have some cool, I don't know if you're going to divulge that, some cool rhythmic approaches too.
He has
really made me be like, oh, that's what that is. It's so simple. I never noticed that.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's do a little blue and green. We got Caleb Kirby on the drums, Bob DeBoe on the bass. Give it up, everybody. Come on,
Big time.
folks. Give it up.
Big time.
Till next time.
You'll hear it.